Hallo und herzlich willkommen zum Actors and Mind Podcast, zurück nach einer Mini-Sommerpause. Mein Name ist Maike Döhling, ich bin Mindset-Coach und Mentorin für Schauspieler und Host dieses Podcasts und ich freue mich, dass du wieder mit dabei bist. Es ist die erste Folge auf Englisch, denn ich spreche heute mit Jason Field. Er ist Model, Schauspieler und eine sehr inspirierende Persönlichkeit, wie ich finde. Und im ersten Teil sprechen wir über seine Modelkarriere und er gibt wirklich so gute Perspektiven und Mindset-Shifts für die Casting-Welt und Branche mit. Das solltest du dir nicht entgehen lassen. Im zweiten Teil sprechen wir dann über das Thema mentale Gesundheit und er teilt seine ganz persönliche Geschichte mit Burnout und Panikattacken und du erfährst, was du tun kannst, um dem vorzubeugen oder wenn du auch schon in einer solchen Situation steckst, da wieder rauszukommen. Es ist eine etwas längere Folge und ich lege dir dennoch ans Herz, sie bis zum Ende zu hören, weil einfach so viele wertvolle Gedanken drin stecken. Und damit wünsche ich dir jetzt direkt viel Spaß und Inspiration mit dieser Folge. I'm very happy to have a wonderful guest today on the podcast. He is an actor and a model from Australia, living in Germany at the moment. And we're going to talk about a lot of very interesting topics like authenticity, expectation management, how it is to travel around the globe for years, and what it means when the body says no. His name is Jason Field, and I'm very happy to have you in the show today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here. There's a lot of topics to discover today. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. How are you today?
Very well. As I was saying just offline, the sun is out in Berlin. It's a rare thing, even though we're approaching June. So I'm a happy man when I get that little bit of photosynthesis happening.
So let's dive in, because I think we have a lot of things to talk about today. Let's start from the beginning. I know that you did something else before you became a model. So tell us your story, how it came you got into modeling and acting.
Sure. It wasn't a very conventional road. I actually followed a more traditional path of going to university and getting a degree in a finance-related field. And that was really expectation-wise in my community, something that I was ticking the right boxes, let's just say that. And I worked my way up, and during the financial crisis and that kind of thing at the time, it was a little bit difficult to find jobs, and I was happy to get myself into an area of private banking that I viewed as the upper echelons of where I wanted to sort of head towards. And so everything felt really right. I wrapped that up in just ticking boxes. There I go, off I go, pleasing my grandparents. They're proud to talk about what Jason does on the weekends when they have their coffee chats with their friends. But then I realized that my soul was being crushed in that environment. I had a pretty drastic burnout. That was burnout number one of several that I'm sure we'll delve into today. I realized that I enjoyed the environment, I enjoyed the work, but the context in which I was acting and waking up each day and performing because I had to also put on a little bit of a mask there as well, and we can work our way through the authenticity argument after this. But it got to the stage where I literally woke up one morning and I couldn't function. And that was my first moment of realizing the body says no. And I wrote in sick and said, I'm feeling under the weather. I couldn't even really put into words what that particular experience actually was, but I knew that I just couldn't leave the house. And so that sort of went on for a couple of weeks. And then finally I pulled the cord, and my mum helped me get into therapy and sort of try and delve into what potentially is going on. But I was surrounded by that expectation and I felt like I needed to get out. And I'm not saying it's possible for everyone to do what I did, but I actually moved to Bali in that time. Compared to the cost of living in Sydney, it's a much cheaper environment to be over there, cost of living on shelter and food. And while I was there, I was open up to this whole idea of the creative economy. And so I started meeting photographers and videographers and people working from laptops, designing websites and whatnot. And then a German girl that was keen on photography, and she thought that I looked not too bad behind or in front of the lens. And I was quite surprised because I was the numbers man. I always knew how to talk to people and then do some financial analytics after that. But that provided quite a nice opportunity for me to launch off into a very, very different industry than sitting in a cubicle and trying to sell X number of loans per day and make X number of calls. That is very much the nature of working in the banking industry.
Very interesting. Let's go back to the moment where you moved to Bali. Why did you go there?
It was a safe place for me. My father worked for the airlines in Australia, Qantas. So we had the cheap flights that comes with those sort of family benefits, especially back then. They were a lot more favorable than they are now. And I think it was 10% of the cost or something we had to pay plus taxes. So for us, actually, it was cheaper for the family to go over to Bali for a family holiday in the school holidays than staying in Australia. It's just so expensive to go to the movies or go to a theme park or something like that to keep the kids entertained. My dad used to always say, let's just go to Bali. You've got the beach there. I could surf and it's all free. You obviously have to pay for your accommodation and food, but we weren't staying in fancy places and we would eat the local nasi goreng and that kind of thing. So by the time I actually moved to Bali, I think I'd been there maybe 15 times and I was 21 or something. So it was a safe place for me. I knew that there was sunshine. I knew I could surf and I knew that there were vibes surrounding that area that were associated with not so much financial pursuits and potentially that eat, pray, love scenario. And that was something that I was much more attuned to. I have this contrast in my personality that is business, strategy, money orientated, but I have to have that balance of getting my feet in the dirt. And as I joke about, getting photosynthesis from the sunshine.
Yeah, interesting, because I think the move to Bali that brought you back to yourself or into your body and to feel good. And it's interesting that your whole modeling career started then from there. So how did this develop then?
I was at the time really not entertaining the idea of going back to Australia because the expectations surrounding that and what I'd done in terms of the burnout and I'd upset people and relationships weren't in the great place. I thought Germany was a great place to go to chase this girl that I'd met there. So I reached out to a whole number of agencies, and I don't think I've actually revealed this to you either in the past. I reached out to 132 agencies around the world. I'm someone that if I do something, I put my mind and effort into it. So all I had was a handful of digitals, basically, which the girlfriend at the time took. And 5 agencies came back and 2 said yes. 1 was in Berlin and 1 was in America. And I didn't want to go to America. Fantastic. Okay. Off to Berlin I went. So the chances of this actually coming about is really quite low because they were one of the last ones that I even messaged. And they didn't have a men's board at the time. And so I was the test guinea pig and they were willing to explore that with this strange fellow from Australia that didn't want to go back there.
When was that?
2015, maybe.
Okay.
So, yeah, 2015.
But did you stay in Germany then or did you travel only for the jobs or what was?
I came over and did the introduction, got some photos and videos taken with them. They accepted me. I went back to Australia, actually worked on a construction site for 2 different construction sites with some friends that were in that industry. So that was a strong reminder as well of what I didn't want to do. 6 days a week, 12 hours on a construction site being yelled at, pick up this, pick up that. And that was, I didn't want to be in the cubicle. And then I didn't want to be on a construction site. So this whole idea of being in front of a camera, which was also terrifying for me, was actually a better choice than some of the other ones that were presented to me. So sometimes when I get asked the question, how do you have the enthusiasm or the motivation to go into that industry? It sounds so scary. And for me, it was the alternate. I knew where I'd been. I knew where that had pushed me. And if I stayed particularly in that environment where I felt like I had to complete certain things and this was my degree, I can't turn back now and reinvent myself. It was always that climbing up the ladder. And the culture here in Germany is less associated with that home ownership. I know there's still obviously traditional values around family formation and whatnot. But in Australia, it's kind of like if you've got the job and you're working your way up through middle management, you then need to buy a home and get a $500,000-$600,000 mortgage. And my friends were doing this. They were having babies. They were getting the dogs and all that kind of thing. And I had a long-term girlfriend before I went to Bali as well. And that was where it was heading. And so that friendship was really tight as well. And I couldn't go back into that because I was just the odd one out. So going to Germany was a really nice fresh start for me, and I could reinvent myself. I could be the guy that, you know what, let's just give this a shot. I'm willing to have a go. No one knows who I am. No one has any expectations surrounding me. And that freedom of strangers can be a really liberating experience.
Before you said your grandparents were really proud of you. What happened when you, or not only with your grandparents, but also with the rest of your family, what happened when you moved to Germany and became a model?
Yeah, there hasn't been a smooth sailing process in that. If I work my way backwards from current times, they're all immensely proud now because they can see things that they recognize. So, for example, when I was doing wonderful things over here, they didn't recognize what the brands were because they hadn't seen it before. So I'd send them photos or videos of the commercials. Oh, interesting, but still viewed me as being Peter Pan. Like, when are you coming home? You're just trying to live this high life that's not sustainable. And then when I got, I think it was transition lenses, which is the glass things that do the automatic change from light to dark. I got that in Cape Town, and then it went to the TV screens and cinema and that kind of thing. And my family was like, wow, that's what you do? I've been sending you like content for years, but they don't really latch onto it. And it was the same thing with Qantas, with the Australian airline. I got a contract with them to do a few jobs, and I'd done some amazing things over here. So happy, and was so proud to share those. And it was sort of almost fallen on deaf ears. And then it was, oh, wow, Jason's on the Facebook ad of Qantas. He must be on the big time. And it was one of my smaller jobs. So I think that what sort of sources of evidence sits within our traditional views and what our relativity is. I mean, we define by relativity. I always say that. So if someone's path in their life is this is the version of success and you're not doing that, it's almost up to us to re-educate them, because it's very hard for them to come over if they have no view of that.
Yeah, you are a really good example for that story, because I always tell the story that my dad also said, what are you doing? You're quitting your job when Corona starts. What's wrong with you? And half a year later, when he saw what I do, and when he also experienced some coachings with me, and something changed with him. And then he said, he once called me and said, I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. And this was so, it makes me emotional now. And I think we have to walk our own way, and people will see that it's a good way.
Absolutely. And I've been delving into some of the literature and information surrounding our biases towards sort of being a child forever, that child within. I forget the name. I think she's Stephanie
Stahl.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's confronting. It's very confronting because we view ourselves as these complete characters, adults. I've got a beard with gray in it now. I should know these things. No, I'm still looking for validation from my family, and their views of validation are still very much hooked upon their version of their own life because that's all they experienced. And I'm sure they had conflict with their parents. I was having a chat with my sister more recently about the tools that are at the disposal of people now, such as ourselves, but even more so the young kids. And I met a guy on Twitter, he's 17, and he's doing these Twitch streams, and he's got like 7,000 people watching him stream on Twitch. And I'm thinking, wow, because they can subscribe to these channels now. I don't know, maybe people listening are much more well-versed in this than I am. But they're generating money sitting in their bedrooms just talking online. For us, we were trying to get validation off Instagram, and we weren't even getting paid for it. We were creating our own sort of death spiral of validation and that kind of thing, where they've now got the tools to actually monetize and turn these into a career, or at least something that supports them, where they don't even have to go out and wait tables and those sort of things that I did. So it's hard for the older generation to actually envision that when they had a 20-year career at one profession, one company. And we can't, because we have contract work, and it is much more orientated around you sort of move from place to place, 5 years here, 5 years there, and you move on. That wasn't the case for my dad. He had the almost, what did they call it, when you stay at one place for a long time? Like the universities get that. You can't really be fired.
It's in Germany, it's called
tenure.
Beamte. It's like if you're a teacher or something.
Correct.
Like,
Correct. So he almost had that in like the sort of boys club of the scenario of those old school companies that exist. That doesn't happen now. The competition that is so frequent and high pressure, we are just kicked out the door as soon as there's a little slump. And my sister has experienced that. She was with a company that went through some bad times. She did a fantastic job there, got glowing reviews. Sorry, we're downscaling. We just had a head count we had to reduce. Mm-hmm. So in that environment, that's motivational for us to say, do you know what? If that's going to be where we're acting, literally, then we should maybe take some more control over our lives and just diversify. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that full-time thing, but it can be, let's diversify and have a few options going.
Yeah. And also I think, it's okay that we still want to get the validation from our parents, but it's a difference if we do it by doing something they want us to do or doing something we want to do.
Definitely. There's a strong difference there.
Yeah. So you traveled around the world then for a few years, and what were the upsides? Do you say it like that?
Yeah.
And downsides?
Yeah. The upsides were phenomenal. That was amazing. This has been the longest time I've been in one place during Corona. Usually I had a policy of sort of 2 or 3 months and I would move on. And that was aligned to sort of my energy cycle as well. I'm very much a person that runs on these hyped up cycles, and I can be full of energy and go for it. And I know that's a very good time to sell myself. If I'm doing that, it can be quite magnetic. Mm-hmm. And so I'll do that, go to the next place, go to the next place, go to the next place. And so I was able to, experience a lot of the world. I went on stay in Cape Town, for example. I was there for 4 months. I've been to Istanbul twice, 3 months at a time. Bali, I went back and worked there for, I think, 6 months, and then 6 months again after that. That was great because it's a very small market. So once you know everyone, and if you can fall into one of the category roles that they're looking for, then you can work quite well. There's not a lot of competition there. And sort of traveled around and tried to work out where was my areas that I could definitely make a little bit of money and also enjoy the environment. So the traditional model role of, for example, being on stay in London or Paris or New York, that was never for me. London, they said I was too small. Paris, I was not tall enough. And that's when I started realizing that even within this industry, because London, it was more they wanted the muscle, and then Paris, they wanted the height. It was strange being categorized like a sheep that you're going off to market or something like that. But that's very much the industry. But that's when I started realizing that the niches within there, I can align that to my personality as well. Okay, I know that Germany is big on commercials. I know that particularly with the lifestyle in Australia, we're very much a happy-go-lucky people. Smiling isn't foreign to us, and it can be. And my experience during the wintertime here in Germany understand why perhaps areas with less sunshine get a little bit less smiley. But I was thinking, okay, this is an opportunity I can exploit. I have a little bit of arbitrage there. So that experience of going out into the world and traveling wasn't one for me to do because I wanted to party. I partied enough when I was young, and not to say that I don't still have a good time now, but I definitely enjoyed the idea of exploring different markets, going there and testing them out and saying, do you know what? There's something I can offer here. People are demanding me. And that happens even in Australia, for example. If I go to Australia, I'm not as in demand as a German model. Because a German model comes to Australia and all of a sudden they're interesting. Well, what's your accent? Where are you from? You're from Germany? Incredible. Yeah. We like foreign things, everyone does.
True. Yeah, interesting. Because I remember when we got your application, and I also thought immediately, oh, he's from Australia. This is interesting.
Yeah, that happens. I had an interview with an agency in Australia that was quite well known, and they were willing to take me if I was willing to say that I would stay there for a long time. They only wanted that. But for example, the international models, they were willing to take them for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. They know that they will work. It's just that little bit of X factor. We like novelty. I was listening to someone the other day talk about the novelty surrounding the passing of time and that kind of thing. When we're young, we feel like the world and life is so rich because everything is new. You go out, what is this? What is that? We're pressing every button on a lift because we don't know what happens. And I think as we grow a little bit older, we start falling into routines and a little bit of melancholy arrives. Life changes. So something comes in that's foreign and novel, then that naturally excites us all. And I think it comes back to human basis. I don't think there's anything too superficial about that. I don't think it's, I'm just going to pick this person because they're from X, Y, and Z. It's more so the fact that that is an exciting story to tell. That's going to have the person arrive on set and be able to talk even with the photographers and the makeup artists and that kind of thing about something different rather than living down the side road and they catch up at the pub anyway. They know all the stories. So we're all humans. We like to interact in positive, interesting environments.
Yeah. So over the 7 years you traveled, what changed? Because in the beginning, I think it was very exciting and you traveled the world and discovered new places. So what changed over the years?
A good wake-up call I can't brush over is the fact that this industry is so spontaneous in its in the recognition of wins or how they're awarded to us. I had that transition job actually led to another transition job where they wanted to film a secondary asset in Rio in Brazil. And I remember receiving that message from the agency saying, just really calmly, "Oh, you're booked for a job in Brazil." What? Wow, this is incredible. And I've been to Brazil before backpacking, but I never thought I'd ever go back there. And it was this dream location. This is really starting now. I'm never going back. I'm just going to the moon. This is going to be fantastic. I arrive in Rio. I was flown business class. We stay on a 5-star hotel on the beach in Ipanema. And I thought that level was forever my baseline. I never thought that I would have to go back. And literally, as soon as I arrived back in Germany, I don't think I worked again for another 3 months. So it was a very strong wake-up call that no matter what we do, we constantly need to sort of prove ourselves, which is that learning lesson I had to go through to realize that over that 7 years, it's a brutal industry that you can't store your wins as easily, potentially as other industry where you've gained this title. It's the assistant to, now it's to, and now you've arrived at this middle management role and you've got the corner office and so forth. Here or in this industry, sure, you can build up a show reel, you can build up connections and networks. That's obviously essential. But at the same time, often you can go into a casting room, they don't know who you are, and you've got to dance like a monkey once again. And it's a really, really wild experience. But I would say after the Corona time or during the Corona time, the wake-up call was that traveling enables avoidance. And I wasn't recognizing that at the time. Constantly moving to a different location, it's very easy to feel that novelty, to feel that stimulus, that adrenaline rush, and realize then afterwards, or I did realize afterwards, that that's perhaps not a sustainable way to live as a human being. It's not something that is aligned to our being in calmness and in presence. And I was operating my energy cycle very much on a adrenaline-fueled manner, and then there had to be a time when that was sort of called upon and I was asked to pay my dues.
So avoidance from what?
I would say there's avoidance in terms of relationships that I don't have to then nurture them as nourishingly as perhaps we do need to, because hey, I'm not there. I can't go to your wedding. I can't see your baby. I can't do these sort of things because I'm off on a shoot in Rio. It explains itself. I don't have to make any other words surrounding that. And you take for granted that friends are going to be there. And I would say that was a very strong reminder for myself when I was going through tough times in Corona, that all of a sudden when I couldn't travel and meet new people and that was my source of human interaction, who am I left with? And when a lot of people left from Germany as well, my sort of international friendship group and that kind of thing, because my German is not so good yet, it's very confronting to realize that and go, do you know what? Like, who's the person that drives you to the hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Who is going to be that person? How can you build up a sustainable life? I'm 32 now. What's my life going to look like at 45? Am I going to be doing shoots in Mallorca with 17-year-old models? And that may sound appealing to certain people. It's not. You want to be relating to people that are on your same level and maturity and talking about life's journey and getting into deep topics, because if it's too superficial, of you meet someone for 2 hours, you can have a drink afterwards and good laugh and you move on. Where are those really nourishing connections that make life worthwhile?
This is so true. I would like to go a bit back, because in my opinion, or also when I worked at the agency, we always thought you are a really successful model. And sometimes we were also joking that if you would come to a casting, all the others could stay at home because you would get the job anyways.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what was for you, I can tell afterwards, but for you, what was the key to success for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by that because I do not view myself like that. It's such a struggle from this side. It's when I hear comments such as that, or I hear comments such as, oh, you come across as a calm person. I sit there and I look and I'm like, what? I feel like the most unstable person in the world, the most insecure person in the world. It's sometimes alarming to see. But I guess that's an opportune moment to bring up expectations. There's so many knockbacks, and I was really, really chasing my tail. I came here with nothing. I was staying in a hostel in West Hafen with 17 foreigners, trying to figure out how I was going to work in this particular environment. I got up a bit of debt as well, being able to stay over here and not going back to Australia. So I really needed to get the jobs. There was that desperation there that if I was going to make this work and work to a level that was going to be somewhat sustainable and give myself some opportunities, I had to work really hard. And so I had every agency in the world, and I would see these models come in from Germany and say, oh, no, I can't do this job because I've got an engagement party this weekend. If they're sitting there filling out the form, are you available? And I look at them like, I'm available 24/7. Tell me where to go. I'll take the job.
Yeah.
So I think it was that motivation that was coming from an area that I couldn't turn back. My back was against the wall, as The Rock says, and I could only go forward. When I look back at my analytics, I started doing some statistics around it to calm myself, to take some gratitude. I realized that I have a failure rate of 85%. So every single request that comes through, even though I got to a level of success that I'm quite proud of, 15% success or 85% knockback was that level. And it only really became sustainable probably 2 years ago. Before that, it was nice job and then quiet, nice job, then quiet. And 2 years ago, I'm still fortunately receiving royalties from. It was just a fantastic year. Last year, I had some really nice ones come through as well. But it was that enthusiasm to say yes to everything and also not be held back by those no's, because I didn't have the opportunity to do so. And I have met several talent along the way, whether they're in the modeling industry or the acting industry. They get hooked upon that one opportunity that, oh, I've got a casting. It's for X amount of dollars, or it's for this particular director. Oh, this is amazing. I can't wait to get it, or that would be so good for me. And I just sit there and I say, you can't think that. You have zero control over that particular scenario. Go in and give your absolute best. I'm not saying not. But once it's done, it's simply a data point. So if you're having, for me, I use the example of 100 castings. If you have 100 castings, there will be 15 jobs in there. And I need to recognize that I have no control over which ones they're going to be. So I could even, when I was having those come through sometimes, I would get, for example, 10 knockbacks. Then I'd be like, there's got to be probably 2 or 3 jobs on the way. And it would come. And with that mentality, you don't fall into the hole as well of thinking, oh, I haven't got anything and I'm going in the wrong direction. It's all over. For me, I kept that level of positivity because every knockback kind of reinforced to me that I'm one closer to actually getting a job. And I think that was a particularly powerful mindset that I perhaps fell upon rather than really constructed by purpose.
Oh, I really like that thought of, if I don't get 10 jobs, there will be some coming up. That's a really good thought.
But I had the statistics there. I think that's a powerful thing too that I would enforce other people to, or encourage other people to explore. I know many people that do not do that. I document it down in an Excel spreadsheet, but it can be obviously in anything. And I say, what agency did it come from? What country? What role type is it? What company is it? So then I start to see also where my strengths are. Okay, now all of my jobs I'm getting are TV commercials. Maybe I should knuckle down on the 20-80 principle. So when I start getting those smaller roles for companies that are going to take maybe 3 days of my time that I could be doing TV commercial castings, then I started saying no to those. That's not what I'm currently looking for at the moment. Or, for example, the competing commercials and that kind of thing. As you know, I was quite strict on making sure that I wouldn't do a car one. And that didn't always fall really nicely upon the ears of agents because you've obviously got your own targets and that kind of thing. And it was very nice to secure Audi last year. It's like, yes. All of those no's that I said, I'm not doing these smaller car brands for X amount of dollars in Spain and all those kind of things. And it finally came through. So I think having that evidence there that, okay, shortlisted for Porsche, shortlisted for Mercedes, I just kept seeing it. I've got to be close. I just kept saying that to myself as opposed to I'm never going to get it, And I think that mindset, all it is just up here in your internal dialogue.
this is very interesting also that you did this analysis of the roles and the places and which agency. I think this is very important because people keep just going and think, okay, I always run against walls. It feels like it, but they don't try a different door.
Particularly in Germany as well. I mean, I don't know what your opinion of this is, but I understand it's illegal to have a exclusive contract in Germany. And I think the same in the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about France. But so many people are held up on the opinion that they only have one agency, whether it's for acting or modeling. And I understand that nurturing element, especially at the beginning. But if you want to make this a full-time job, the problem is, or the disconnect is, an agency can keep running on fresh blood, and especially in the modeling industry. There is an enormous amount of model-ready humans sitting on the door of Eastern Europe that come in with desperation and they're feeding their families. And I've met a lot of these. They will sleep with their makeup on. They work 18-hour days. It's incredible. So if you're up against that, then, and you say, oh, I'm going to take one agency in Munich or something like that, or Stuttgart, blah, 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 and that's my shot at this industry, I would then say you've only knocked on one door. Sure, I probably went too far, but I felt like I needed to financially, otherwise I wasn't going to be here at all. And that's what I ended up having those discussions with a couple of agents when there was a little bit of friction there. You can't have this many agencies. Okay, well, I wasn't earning enough. And it's either I go back to Australia or I have other partners here. Yeah. And that provided me that foundation to grow. And for example, having a random one in Belgium, I think I got 3 jobs from them. And at that particular time, one of those jobs came through when my rent was due and I wasn't looking good for that one. If I didn't have that, I would never have got it. So knocking in those doors are really important. Obviously, we must manage those relationships and it can get very difficult to do so. But putting all your eggs in one basket when you are ultimately a replaceable asset with someone else coming through the door is a wise business, or not a wise business decision in my particular opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when I worked at the agency, we always said it's good to have to not have more than 2 agencies in one city. Correct. Or in the north of Germany and the south of Germany, for example. Yeah. But if you choose them wisely, it's good to have more.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would say it's the 80-20 principle again, in terms of knocking on the door, but you don't have to stay, right? So if you knock on the door and it doesn't prove well, because I noticed that most of my financial success was coming from, for example, your agency and another one in Berlin. So that, in my opinion, because it was more centered in Hamburg and I was getting jobs from your agency in Hamburg as well, I was like, okay, that's my Hamburg and that's my Berlin tied up. Yeah. And I was happy with that. And that was primarily where a lot of the money was coming from. That was, for example, in Germany. I had a couple of other agencies that were smaller that would just come along every 6 months with something. And that was helpful because all of a sudden it would be a random job in, where did I go? Schwäbisch Hall?
Schwäbisch Hall, yeah.
Yeah, had a job in there, and that was fantastic. Go down there. I would never have thought about this town. Go down there. And so those sort of ones were good as well, because then there's a difference in frequency and jobs that you're not going to be competing on too. A random, that was for a sauna, and I never saw that request from another agency. So it doesn't hurt anyone along the way. It doesn't ruin a relationship. So I think having the mixture there, it's useful to work out as you're starting to build up that level of success where you should be tending your garden. And then having that maybe littered with a few little wild cards, maybe a good way to go about it. But I've been presented along this journey, even when I was feeling like I was at the higher levels of where I thought I could possibly go in this particular segment, I was still having people approach me with all these agencies and say, hey, can we sign you up? Oh, what have you got to offer? Oh, we cover this area. Oh, potentially. I mean, this is my structure. I only get my TV commercials from these particular agencies. I would always say that, because otherwise they just grab them from the pool. But if you've got anything different, oh, we want a mother agency with you. I'm like, I don't need that. I manage myself. I have my calendar. If you take my calendar away, I'll be very upset and I'll be yelling at you. So allow me to have my calendar. I've got my fantastic bookers around the place. I don't need anyone else to take an extra clip for doing nothing. I'm not saying everyone does nothing, but sometimes those mother agency requests are purely because they're looking for that consistency of that money coming in too, with the extra 5-10% that they get.
So you said commitment was one thing, the mindset was one thing, the expectation management. Yep. And I think this is also that your self-worth was not with one job. You know what I mean? Correct.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really important. If you want to delve into that idea, that was something that I found really confronting and just entering this industry. And I'm so very thankful that I came in at this age. For example, when I was down in Cape Town, staying in the model house there was 14 people in this model house. And there were people from America. I think the youngest was 18 from America. Mm-hmm. They are so tied. Their role is so tied to their identity. And that was frightening for me to hear, because when they received that feedback, when I was in the bank and I was told, oh, Jace, mate, that report's not great, we need to rework it. It hurts a little bit. That's our baby, right? We did that, but it's separated. It's not me. Whereas this industry is, you're too short, you're too fat, you're not muscly enough. And it's like, well, that's me. Maybe I could go to the gym more. Maybe I should ease off the vice beer or something like that. But ultimately, they're still reflecting upon you. And that is a really, really difficult thing to comprehend. And thankfully, I think I came in with a little bit more of a thicker skin than, for example, starting out at 16, 17. So my piece of advice is always remember that the client is looking for something, and it has zero reflection on you about who you are. They're looking for a match in that particular scenario. Please don't take that as a view of who you are in this world. It is not your sense of validation. It's just trying to find a particular match for a particular scenario. Think about it as a puzzle piece. It's nothing to do with your worth as a human being. It's hard to do, but repeating that consistently can kind of like dye the thoughts in your brain to a level that when you get that knockback, okay, that wasn't my profile, which is something that I would always repeat. And for example, when I would reach out to agencies, or if I was freelancing in Bali or something like that, or Turkey, I would send a message out and I would say, hey, super excited that I'm in your town at the moment. Let me know if there's anything that suits my profile. Because when you have that detachment, then you no longer get hooked on it. Just give me a ring. Otherwise, keen to catch up for a coffee or whatever. I mean, especially in Bali, everyone knows each other there. It's a very friendly basis. Keen to catch up for a beer, whatever, but let me know if there's anything that really matches my profile. Then when they say, oh, I've got this one, sorry, the client didn't approve. It's like, no worries. It wasn't my profile. And I think that is super, super important in building that boundary for yourself.
That is powerful, yeah.
But I would say so in approaching the agencies too, because I think I did the same. I don't know whether I changed the pitch after speaking to you, but I think I said the same. My profile is this, and I would say young, successful, married type, because I was always getting these young dad roles. And then I'll give examples of the jobs that I'd work for. So then again, when I'm presenting, if I don't get a response or if I don't get an approval, oh, we had our discussion with management and they said they don't really think that you'd be a good fit. No worries. Maybe they have 10 people on their board that look exactly like me, which I know some of the bigger agencies do. I move on.
I think this is very important, that you know who you are and what profile you have. And on the other side, it's also, I mean, if I get this I think I remember that you wrote something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but I remember that. And it's also that me as a casting agent, I look at the set card then and see, okay, can I see this and what else can I see? So it's like I open up my mind too. But yeah, I think this is very important to know who you are and who you are not.
Absolutely. But even just the element of reaching out. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on cold emailing and cold DMs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm the world's best at it, but I think that I've worked it in a direction that's a little bit more favorable than perhaps other people. I get emails and messages that are just insanely me. And the way that I try to structure the emails is to reduce the time that you have to spend in making that decision. And if you make your decision that you think it might be a good idea, I want to give you the ammunition that when you go into fight for me to someone else, if they need to approve it, you have that there. Because so many people say, oh, here are my digitals. Can you suggest me to an agency? And I'm like, well, tell me who you are, what you're doing. And it's not my job to do that anyway. But then I try and instruct them, okay, what is your profile? What are some clients, whether you've either worked for them or potentially you see yourself? Put together a little mood board even. Oh, often I get profiled as XYZ, because the mood boards that I would often get for particular jobs, they were so common, particular people. So, okay, that's my type. I can take that and say, this is what I've been said I sort of look like, or something like that. And it reduces your time when you've got 400 emails in your inbox on a Monday morning.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. He's done some of the early research for me.
True. So I think you said a lot of things now, because I wanted to say what made you professional, in my opinion.
Sure.
Because I think this is very interesting. Now, hearing what you say is, I think you have been, or you're still very professional, but also what I saw was you were always present. You had fun, which is so important because there are a lot of people coming in and you think, why do they do that?
Correct. Yeah.
Is it the right job for them? And I think it's because they have such a pressure or stress with certain situations. And the other thing also was that you were also very thankful for the situation and people could feel that.
Yeah. No, I believe that level of relativity is super powerful, and I know I didn't have it earlier in my life. So I can never say to someone, be more grateful, be more humble, because I know at 21 I wasn't. And I had a middle-class upbringing in Sydney and was lucky enough to go to university and have a house over my head and that kind of thing. But then when I put myself in such a hole, I realized that every single door that opened for me, that only opened because someone was holding the handle and literally created that opportunity. I may have knocked there, sure, I was there present, but that doesn't happen. Humans make decisions. So I was immensely grateful that was providing that opportunity for me to do so. But in terms of the presence idea as well, when it comes down to it, we're all human. And I get so confused about people that operate in a particular way to get somewhere else. It's almost that idea that, in Germany, it's not as common to do the commute. But it was always funny for me if I drove to the banking job that was an hour away. You drive really fast to get home for no reason. I go home and I sit on the lounge feeling tired. It's that sort of get to because I've got something else to do. And for me, I had, when I first arrived, no friends, nothing else to do. I'm on this set. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I could spend all day here. So that presence was also a subject of I literally had nowhere else to go. And when I reverse engineered that later and I was taking sort of reflection notes, I was like, do you know what? That's actually gold for trying to implement that whenever. When I do have other things to do, how about not thinking about those and being absolutely present in the situation so then you can have those exchanges. And some of my best relationships come from the fact that you have those chance encounters and someone says, oh, do you want to go for a drink or something like that? In Sydney, I would have thought, oh, I've got 300 friends. I don't need to do that. Here, I was like, yeah, I'm only going to go home to or my hostel or my share house or something like that. Yeah, let's go for a drink. And so saying yes to those scenarios. And that changed again. Once I built up my social circle, I realized that some of the best things that happen in life was saying yes, as opposed to shutting down that level of novelty in life that we start ignoring as we get older. I think there's some gold in there.
I like that. Saying yes to things. Because I read the book, I can recommend that. It's called The Surrender Experiment. And it's also about saying yes to things that show up. And once I started this, sometimes I forget, but it's sometimes we say no because we are afraid or because we want to stay in our safe space. So if we say yes more, things can happen.
And listening to that intuition.
Yeah.
Because that logical brain, at least in my opinion, is the later developed one in our human existence. The intuition often knows that gut feeling of, is this right or wrong? And I made a decision to apply for the private banking job on a train ride back from the job I was at previously, just in a whim. I was writing in my journal. I'm a big writer, so inviting those reflection moments in, I think, is really important as well, because otherwise it escapes you. But I was writing down and I was just realizing that, no, this isn't for me. And I went online, started looking at jobs and started applying from it. It led to that. It was a fantastic opportunity. I just obviously wasn't a right fit for it. Again, detachment. And then after that, when I had I had a burnout from the private banking, the only reason that I can sit here today and be having this wonderful conversation with you is because I was in Bali and was walking out of the surf. And this is why I talk about the ideas of priming, which we can get into later.
Yeah.
Full of joy because I just got the most amazing wave of my life. At Batu Belong there in Canggu, you can ride a wave for 400 meters.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I was going to my bike, putting the board into the rack there, and there's this girl there next to me pulling a bike up, and I just looked at her and I'm like, wow, that's a healthy way to get around, because she was riding a bicycle. Everyone has mopeds in Bali. No one's riding a bicycle. The roads are terrible. There's no autobahn, I guarantee you. And she looks at me and she's like, yeah, it is. We started talking, and she's the one that I chased to Germany. If I was not feeling the vibes from surfing, I would never have met her. I would never have then gone to Germany. I'd never be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
The last part of that, though, is the idea of attachment to it, because that's what I've got to grow a lot with. is that some people are signposts in that regard. And for that particular example, that relationship didn't quite work out. That's okay. And to try and let go those scenarios, because sometimes when someone opens a door for us, we then feel ever attached to that scenario, whether it's a relationship professionally or personally. Sometimes the paths diverge and we have to be okay with that.
Oh, this is so true. Yes. It's again, we come to a certain point where this whole scenario is again our comfort zone. And sometimes we have to leave people then, or situations or agencies, whatever. So let's move on. So I got in contact with you again after I saw that you shared your story from the last 12 or more months, a few weeks or months ago. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I have to talk to you. So what happened during the Corona time? How was that for you?
Sure. It was terrible, as it was for a lot of people. I can obviously say that thankfully I didn't catch it and I didn't lose a loved one with it. So I must respect that obviously some people had a more difficult time than I did. However, that moment of being confronted, all of a sudden life stops. And I was then shown in life, okay, do you know what? I have to stop. I have to reevaluate. I have to be confronted with the life that I've been leading. And I've had a number of discussions with people about this. We're on that treadmill, right? We're on the hamster treadmill or the hamster wheel as we go. And we don't have time to stop and think about who we are, what we're doing, what's sustainable, what's good for us. And then all of a sudden Corona comes and the government says you must stay indoors, and you're just sitting there with your own thoughts, and that's really confronting. So I pushed through the initial part. It was a little bit scary because I couldn't move, and I was so very much attuned to that idea of hopping on a plane in a new exciting environment. At the time I didn't realize that's why I was feeling different, but now I do. And I was still getting some jobs. Luckily, I was super happy about that. Again, with Germany, there was less competition, actually. So I had a pretty good year last year as well. But I think that the door that opened up, and I keep using this door analogy, but it seems to be useful, was sort of at the same time there was this crossing of paths happening of, okay, I'm still hustling and trying to make this work. I can't see what my future is going to look like. How long is this going to go on for? I'd lost that sort of optimism that it's all going to work out. At the same time of being confronted with this a lot of time. And this was manifested in my body. As I said, I'd been opened up to the idea of The Body Says No by Gabor, by my therapist, which I then engaged afterwards. But what happened sort of October last year was I was on my last job and I was getting these uncontrollable shakes. And sometimes I can get shaky from having too much coffee, for example. It's not foreign to me to feel a little bit of that. I know that my adrenaline runs quite close to the surface. However, it was a confronting feeling for it to be so present. And I didn't feel nervous. It wasn't like, oh, I'm on this set. I wasn't doing anything. I was feeling it come over me as I was sort of off the camera for the moment, taking a moment. And so I walked home and I was feeling lightheaded and feeling a little bit confused, and just viewed that as an opportunity to maybe take a break. And I'm happy I did so, to say, you know what, I've been chasing these castings every single day. I had a few commitments at the time that I couldn't fulfill. It was that moment again after the banking when I woke up or during the banking when I woke up and said, I can't go in. It was kind of the same as that. I had a couple of castings to do. I had a shoot that was ongoing at the time. And literally, I couldn't open the door. I couldn't open my emails. I couldn't open anything because my cup of life that is Jason was full and couldn't accept any more stimulus. And any time I did, these shakes started coming back again. And this was super confronting. So I said to myself, do you know what? I'm going to use Corona as an opportune moment to create some freedom in my life through the digital economies. What I should have done at that time was say, I'm going to use the opportunity to revamp myself, take some time off and concentrate on health, but it wasn't the path that I took. So by taking that time off, suddenly I had all the freedom in the world. So I actually doubled down on that time by myself. And I was working on the idea of productizing myself and working with ideas of confidence on camera in the home studio that I ended up getting to. But during that process, I was staying up to all hours and not sleeping well, not exercising, not having the natural bounce of life that I usually get from traveling, and especially the experience of this Northern Hemisphere winter where the sun just decides to fall asleep for so long. And if it comes out for one day, it's like a really low burner. Like, come on, that's not going to cook anything. We need to turn up the fire on this thing. That was super confronting. I was getting every tablet under the sun to try to work through things, but I still don't know exactly how I'm going to work things out in that regard. But it came to a point anyway, where one day I had a uncontrollable fit is the only way that I can describe it. I was on the floor. I could not stand up. I was completely lightheaded. I trying to have a cold shower to maybe wake myself up, or maybe it was dietary, thinking, is this diabetes? Is this something that's going on? It was so strange, the shaking and irrational thoughts too. I was getting very concerned about my well-being. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought my throat was closing off. I had one of those, okay, go home, relax, just to sort of try and get back into things, do some yoga. 3 days later again, got to the point where enough is enough. This was so scary. I'm going to the emergency room. So we go to the emergency room, sit down there, and as I'm trying to talk to the doctor originally, my hands are just completely shaking, can't really talk, and it feels like what potentially an epileptic fit might be like. I can't explain it anything else. And then after some time, 30 minutes, an hour or something like that, I calm down, I go in, they do the vitals check and that kind of thing, and they say there's nothing wrong with me. And I'm like, what? How can you say there's nothing wrong with me? And I'm thankful that there's nothing wrong with me, but at the time I couldn't comprehend that. How can you say there's nothing wrong when I'm experiencing these so very confrontational physical responses? So then that's when the therapist came in afterwards. I was like, okay, if this is happening, and it became really regular, almost a daily basis, I got the therapist, and he's been the best decision of at least 2021, potentially my whole life, to open up that whole idea that suppressing feelings, how you present yourself in the world through authenticity, is a response then to expectations and relationship management, running on adrenaline, avoidance, all these avenues to go down. And that has really renewed myself and made my relationship with myself, my internal dialogue, and then also the world, a complete 180. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And while I'm still taking some time off from the castings and just build up my confidence in myself, because I must say my ability to perform, for example, on a TV commercial set where it's get up at 4 a.m. and be there for 16 hours or something like that, I still don't really have the confidence to do that. I tried to go for a run the other day and I could only really do 5K, and I used to run 10K with my eyes closed. So I'm still very much in the recovery process, but I can say that at least now I feel like I'm equipping myself with those tools, and the therapist has been number one, front and center with helping with that.
So what does it mean? What was it you suppressed? Or, I mean, not only you, I know a lot of people who suppress certain things. What exactly is it? You said emotions, and what else?
I think my biggest problem was I was cut off from my social circles, and I don't really like using technology to socialize. I'm very much an emotional person. I like being in person. This is the reason why I gravitated towards video as well, because I really enjoy the vehicle of video as a means to being able to present what you're feeling to another person. There's no other way to get that emotional connection and trust, because you can hear someone's voice, you can see their body language, you can read them, get that vibe check happening. I believe that when Corona came and then my only sources were social communication, I was so overwhelmed with that and my inability to actually present the level of person that I wanted to be to those relationships, that I had to just completely shut it off. So I turned off my Instagram, I closed down everything, which is obviously, again, the worst thing possible, because then I just completely isolated myself. But I had no sense of mastery. It's like, how am I going to communicate to this person? And this person only knows me as go, Jace, high energy, life is awesome, like Shakas, we're going down the beach for a surf. And here's this side of me that I've been through, this is my third time of this, and sometimes minor doses of that throughout my normal existence that I usually keep in the skeleton closet that no one knows about. So in terms of suppression, it was the idea that I'd created signals and a relationship baseline that was unsustainable, and to such a scale that, I mean, even today, I probably have 250 messages in my inbox that I haven't got to. I'm getting more peace associated with that, and I'm doing some strategies of scaling intimacy and working through it. But I think if we're operating in the public sphere, and I'm welcoming that in with the different social channels that I'm using, we have to take ownership of the messages we're sending out. And I wasn't doing that at all. I was carving off that profile that I was, Okay, you want the happy guy, you want the young, successful guy, then I'll give that to you. And I'll give you that times 1 million. And when I'm posting pictures of being in the Maldives and I'm feeling terrible in my lounge room at home and someone messages me like, let's catch up for a beer, or they want to have a chat, and I have zero energy or emotional sustenance to do that, it's hard to actually have that initial conversation because it's coming from a moment of vulnerability and a lack of energy as well. Yeah, I haven't quite ticked all those boxes or crossed all those T's, but just putting that out there has been one of the most liberating experiences possible. And the reception thereafter was from so many people saying, I'm going through the same thing, was really, really surprising.
Mm-hmm. So you mean the main thing of being authentic is to really show yourself as a whole personality, not only the thing you want to bring out. I saw a video from you. You were talking about this, like not only showing 10% of yourself, but the whole you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use Instagram, and this is why I actually ended up removing some of the videos that I had up there, because I've launched one product. I'm going to launch the second one, and a few of those customers are coming over into Instagram, which was much more, even though it doesn't seem intimate, that's where my main source of communication was to a lot of my family and friends, at least at scale. So I don't advocate us setting up a live stream and crying to the camera or something like that. But I think that it's important to just at least address that we're not perfect human beings, and that life isn't just about traveling and drinking beer and having the best holidays and work experiences, but vulnerability exists. And my responsibility is not just I don't need to create a vlog of myself lying on the floor shaking, but I can just literally say that I'm also human. I suffer from this. I think a lot of other people suffer from this. And if they don't, they have another fault, because that's the nature of being human beings. So what I would say is life in itself is just a whole accumulation of social relations. That's how everything works. No matter what we do, whether it's accumulating money or going on a holiday or going to work, everything is human interactions. We are pack animals. So how then am I being inauthentic? I'm not allocating those communication channels the respect that they deserve in terms of the signaling that I can meet the expectations of that person. And that's what was hurting me, because I had these enormous expectations, and often they didn't, to be honest. I say they, victimizing myself, but it's not true, because a lot of the people that I reconnected with said, hey, I know who you are. You don't have to constantly prove yourself, but maybe I'm institutionalized from the casting circuit, and I felt like I had to go in there and go again. Here we go, 100 miles an hour. And maybe that's a subject of or a byproduct of the industry or something like that. But yeah, taking control of the situation and then being able to say, for example, if someone says, oh, let's have a chat, or let's catch up, or can you do this for me? A lot of those kind of things as well, because I'd always put myself out there as, yeah, I can help you, whether it's for connections, whether it's for this, or super proactive in that regard. Now I'm much more proactive in saying, or setting those boundaries, as my therapist says. At the moment, I don't have the capacity. This is what I'm doing, X, Y, and Z, and providing that evidence in the public sphere as well. Because, for example, my friends and family back in Australia, they don't know what I'm doing. So me just simply doing a video and uploading it onto Instagram that they can all watch. I know it sounds insensitive to do so, but that's the only means of communications I have, often outside of doing Zooms and that kind of thing with my family. Then they can see what I'm doing. Okay, Jason's building a product. And all of a sudden, the vocabulary changed as well. So proud of you. It looks great. It looks so interesting, as opposed to what I was doing before, which was just all highlight reels. Now I'm showing them much more building in public.
Yeah.
This is me knuckling down and blood, sweat, and tears to make this happen. I'm going to share the wins that happen because I'm going to be proud of them, but I also want to share how much work and effort is going into it, which with the modeling, I wasn't doing so much. I was just sharing, this is the job that I won, which is the 15% of the 100% story.
Yeah, really interesting. Because last time we spoke, you said something about lack of conversation. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what you said now, because it's a lack of conversation with our relationships, but also with ourselves. Yeah. If we don't listen to our body or to our emotions or needs, whatever it is, it's also we don't communicate with ourselves.
Correct. I mean, this is what the therapist said to me, because he said there's fight and flight response. Yeah. And I'm very well attuned to that. And I know what I'm like after a job as well. And I recognize, as I said, with the energy cycles, I know I'm generally a 3-month person, that after 3 months, it's good for me to reset. And I would often, in that reset process, it would be quite natural because, for example, if I went to a different location, you never start working straight away. You've got to build up those connections again. So I generally have 2 weeks of that initial setting up process, that resetting. And so what I realized is that there's different timelines of fight or flight. And I was probably on a mega structure of fight or flight of that 7 years, making myself whole again and making my family proud and building up my finances again. All those things that people are doing, and I'm not saying taking for granted, but because I was operating in such uncertain territory, I was always scared that it was going to be taken away from me. So I was always on to the next, always on to the next. So maybe I was doing a micro charge, but I was still very much running scared from 7 years ago. And for example, hadn't spoken to some people that I'd love to speak to from 7 years ago because I was like, no, I've got 3 castings to do today. This is essential to my very existence. At least that's the way I thought. And so what the separation we're drawing in there was, 1, the timelines that we can operate on fight or flight. It can be a moment, it can be a day, it can be years. Secondly, is if you don't listen to it, the body will shut you down. And I joke that it's the lizard vein. I believe the word is the vagus vein or something. It runs down our body there. And that's the faux heart attack. So when I ignore the fight or flight response so much, the body's saying to me, you're using ridiculously reserved energy right now. This is not your natural energy. It is not sustainable. And I'm like, yeehaw, this adrenaline just got me a great job in somewhere. No, it's not sustainable. I can't use that. I need to go back to a more sustainable level. But if I don't listen to it, then the lizard vein is going to say, okay, we'll shut you down. You're going to be laying on the floor of your apartment in a fit. And that's the only way we can do it because you're not listening. So that level of communication with myself, and I can feel it now, I'm getting much better at recognizing that. And for example, just in the day, if I've been doing, for example, yesterday, as I said to you before we jumped on air, I did 15 tutorials yesterday for the platform. That was amazing to build that flow state, and I really enjoyed doing that. But then I allowed myself to wake up at 10 today. I have the luxury of doing that at this moment, taking the time off and concentrating on the product. But previously, I would have set the alarm for 6 and I would have been up again. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. It's just addiction to it because it feels great. No, I'm going to start the day slower today. And if I don't feel like I've got those vibes, you know what? I'm going to actually put that work away and do another day. Motivation is not my problem. I actually need to rein myself back.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem.
Yeah. So I think you already answered my next question a bit. What do you do now to really, or what can we do to listen to our needs and to our body?
I really recognize the symptoms for myself, and I don't know if that's replicable, but the symptoms for myself, at least at this level where I'm still trying to rebuild, so I think they are quite perhaps severe, is, for example, a lack of focus. If I'm having a conversation with someone, such as right now when it's just the 2 of us and we're engaged in a deep conversation, I start glazing over. And thankfully, it's not happening today. But that's what I was realizing, what was happening. And I was confused about that. Oh, why can't I maintain my concentration? So a shortening of the attention sphere, maybe a little bit of irritation as well. Something would really set me off. And I'm not a very I'm emotional, but I don't go to the level of anger or something like that. And something would happen and all of a sudden I'll get irritable. So I think keeping track of that is something that's really important. And I, for example, have tried a few different techniques, and I would encourage other people to do the same, of tracking your mood levels. If it's something that you're struggling with, give yourself out of 5 score. How am I feeling? Am I shaking? That for me is my expression. It leaks in many different ways for people. And for me, it's shaking. It can be, the lightheadedness, lack of concentration. And suddenly I'm like, okay, do you know what? You're burning from an area that is not sustainable. Let's wind it back. But we just have to really take that moment to reset. And I would encourage also that if you don't feel like you're having those signs happen to you, invite into your life areas of calm and then tell me after that. Because when you slow down, then all of a sudden those confrontational thoughts come up, and that's what you're been suppressing. Whether that's in dreams, whether it's in times of meditation, or whether it's in just going for a walk. When we turn off those social media pings that are a form of distraction and suppressing our true emotions, when we turn that off and all of a sudden we're confronted with ourselves, maybe it's airplane mode, flying somewhere, and all of a sudden you've got 3 hours just with your own thoughts. If you're fine after that, okay, I'll take the pressure off. But often that's the true test.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, I think that's also, and I include myself in that, the reason why people stop or don't take the time for themselves or don't stop using the phone or something like that, because they are afraid of what comes up then.
Correct.
And one of my clients, she started because she said, oh, today I'm like in a weird mood. And I said, well, just let it be there without saying this is good or bad. And then she started something which I really like, because she said she took her time, and every time something came up, she said, okay, 10 minutes from now or 20 minutes. And I lay down on the couch and I just let everything be what is there. And after 20 minutes, it's over and I can go on.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is what my therapist was going through as well in terms of somatic experiences. And I actually, I'm on the very edge of some of these tools and techniques, because as I've been building up this platform for the Confidence on Camera, I've been delving into some really basic stuff that I was using, the priming and that kind of thing from years ago. But he noted this to me maybe 4 weeks ago, and it was fantastic. No, actually, it wasn't 4 weeks ago. It must have been 9 weeks ago, because it was after my last panic attack, which was 9 weeks ago now. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, what's the experience? Let's walk through it. And for me, it's this shaking. And he says, okay, so what are some other examples in your life where you're under stressful situations and what happens there? And I said, oh, yeah, it can manifest in shaking. And he knows that I'm doing the cold showers. So he asked me, what do you do when you have a cold shower? And I said, I tense up like completely. I flex all my muscles. I quickly wash myself. I count the 30 seconds to feel that I've done what I need to do for the day to reset myself. And he said, look what you're doing. You're priming yourself to respond in that manner. You are tensing up. So then when stress comes into your life, that is what your bodies react to. You've just trained your muscles to actually do that. Obviously, not taking cold showers has done that. But what he's saying is that opens an opportunity of stress testing. Mm-hmm. So now what I do in the shower is I say to myself, maybe this is what I need to experience. Pain will set me free type of thing, and completely relax. And it's so funny to get this different experience of when you actually let it be. It's way less confrontational. The more you actually build it up into a war, it becomes more confronting. But I use the word semantic. I'll have to make sure that I define that, because otherwise it will be confusing. The semantic experience is, you know how a gazelle gets chased by a lion and the gazelle gets away. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, it shakes and then it goes back to eating grass like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. No post-traumatic stress. And it's like, bro, you just had your neck in the mouth of a lion. You just faced death. And he's like, no. Or she's like, no, that's cool. I'll move on. I can't even remember that experience. So there's actually a guy, I think it's Peter Levine, if I'm not mistaken, who's been using this as a form of therapy. And that's what my therapist said, trial it out next time. If you're feeling that tension come through your body, do the really novel, shake it out, let it happen. Maybe your body is trying to allow that to happen to move forward. And I think it's a really, really empowering element. Instead of going to war with ourselves and saying, this is a really bad weakness of myself, actually, maybe it's something that gives you a superpower or allows you to express something that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, this is so good. Because we have so much energy in our body, which we saved. Can I say it like this?
Store,
which we stored from previous experiences. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have to tell a story now, because I was in a mastermind, and one of the participants, she told a story that her grandpa died the day before, and she was with him, and she said that when he took his last breath, he shaked, and then afterwards he was calm. And this was kind of because we spoke about energy in our bodies and release the energy. And the woman who did this masterclass, she said, this is releasing energy, and this shows that he was really good connected still, even if he was sick. I think this is so important, to let go of the energy which is still in our bodies.
The body's a vessel, and that's what I always forget as well. You keep thinking about it as one and the same. I mean, obviously it is, but the more we recognize that our being within us, and we don't have to go into any type of theology surrounding that, but just going into the scientific basis of that. And for example, what Gabor goes into, he talks about that idea of suppression and emotions and that kind of thing in a scientific way, literally with the case studies of women with breast cancer, the survival rates of them being able to authentically vent in relationships. And that blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. But both sample studies the ladies were in unhappy marriages. Didn't matter in terms of if they both had the ability to vent themselves, they both had the same survival rates. But if they're in an unhappy marriage and they couldn't vent, then the fatality rates skyrocketed. And that's facts, that's nervous system. We don't have to go into any type of hoo-la-la voodoo dolls. That's just the truth.
Yeah. I actually started reading this book and I find it really interesting. I will link it in the show notes as well, because there was also one story of the cello player, the woman. She died from, oh my God, ALS. I don't know. I forgot what it was, but and it says that she could express herself through the cello playing, but she expressed it, but she didn't go through the emotions. So that was also very interesting because I never thought it that way.
Yeah, there's two parts to it. You can't just, that's true.
Can't just express yourself. You have to work through these emotions. Yeah. I also do the cold showers. And what I do is in that moment, because it makes me very present and awake, and I start breathing very deeply. It wakes me up and it also relaxes my body. Yeah.
I've been experimenting with the UJE breathing of shutting off the breath there. Have you heard of that one, that Darth Vader breath?
No.
Kind of thing. Maybe we can link that in the show notes too. I'll send you over a Yoga with Adrian tutorial. It's fantastic. So the whole idea is that the length of your breath going out as a ratio compared to your inhale is a signal, is a form of dialogue with your nervous system. And the breath is the language of the nervous system, is the paradigm that we're working in here. And so my therapist said, he's a yogi as well. This is why I'm getting all these type of technology. We do breath work at the end of the session. It's fantastic. So when I'm in the shower, then I elongate that end breath, and I do it in the UJE breathing as well to sort of suppress the breath as it comes out. So instead of me previously tensing up and doing those panic breaths that what does it do? Reinvent or replicate hyperventilation. Yeah. It's just, that's what I'm telling myself. I'm telling my body, okay, we're in panic mode. This is just insane. We shouldn't be here right now. So obviously it responds. Now I'm doing that breath work and the long breathe out. It's, we're okay. We can turn off those feeling sensations as well. And it doesn't actually feel as cold as what it did before. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Did you develop like a morning routine, or what do you do?
Yeah, we're working on this full nervous system reset, and that comprises yoga, breath work, and meditation. So I've been meditating for 7 years now. That was the confronting experience as well, that I thought that meditation was my tool I could use whenever, because that was the one that saved me last time, or the burnout from the banking job. I opened the door to meditation at that time. So whenever I talk about meditation, breath work, yogi, and there's someone listening and saying, oh, that's a bit weird, I understand. I was like that as well. And I didn't want to do it until the world smacked me down. And then all of a sudden I realized the benefit of it. So if I can use my existence and my experience to push people into even thinking about it. But this reset that is holistic is something that is new to my routine, because that's what he was saying. Okay, you can give yourself some freedom of mind and presence and that kind of thing. But if you're not addressing the body, it's all intertwined. Because when I was going through these panic attacks over wintertime, I noticed I couldn't meditate. It was so difficult to do. And for me, that was strange. I built up this routine of almost plunging into presence, and from the discipline of employing this for so long, and suddenly I couldn't. I was having these disastrous thoughts as well, that my throat was closing up, and really, really panic moments. Hang on, my safe zone is even gone. Yeah. So he said to me, okay, we need to address this in a full body sense. And that's yoga. And I've just simply been doing yoga with Adrian. I love her tutorials on YouTube there. You can pick the morning routine or the evening routine. Then I do the breath work, which is now the UJE breathing, and I've been doing also alternate nostril breathing. Then I do, after that, my meditation, which I have been sort of quasi-trained in transcendental meditation. I say trained lightly. It was just a weekend retreat where I was given a mantra and instructed how to do it. And that has been indispensable. I know the difference in days when I skip And I've also used it as a safety net. I had maybe 2 close calls in the last 9 weeks where I was starting to feel, wow, I'm getting these panic thoughts, the irrational thoughts. I'm feeling my body starting to get these little moments of shaking and whatnot. Okay, you know what? Instead of going double down, because when I start panicking about having a panic attack, obviously it brings a panic attack. No, I have a tool at my disposal. I roll out the yoga mat, I put on yoga with Adrian, and half an hour later, I'm fine again. If it is a moment where I feel like I can't even get the yoga mat, and this is what I was doing just before the last panic attack when things were a little bit less controllable, breath work is the number one go-to. And I really do believe that is the language of the nervous system. As soon as I started changing it, it's difficult to begin at the beginning because your body is so tensed up. So even just trying to, I'm going to take in a deep breath, it was almost impossible to do. But just giving 3 to 5 minutes of dedicated Ujjayi breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, complete reset. For me, because of the shaking, it was better to have the holistic routine. But for example, if someone's in a stressful situation, and let's draw this back to, for example, moments of evaluation. And this is where I think the key to, for example, the modeling and acting is when you start getting that experience of performance anxiety or feeling under pressure or burnout or something like that, then these tools are available. If you're about to go on set, then you can initiate something like this 3 or 5 minutes in the room outside and nobody even knows what you're doing, you know? These tools are available for us, but we just have to be open to it.
Nice. So you say it's important to realize what the trigger moment is and then to know what to do then, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that trigger moment is creating the space, obviously, to identify that who you are and what you're doing. I think that everyone, no matter what they're doing, needs to create that space. I know that I work better. I know I'm a better person. I know that I have better ideas when I give myself 8 hours sleep and I do yoga, breath work and meditation, no matter what, as a sustenance. Journaling, reflection, that kind of thing. If we don't self-reflect, then we're just doomed to repeat the mistakes. And I do that. I'm not saying I don't, but at least I've stopped myself doing it more frequently and maybe to the depths of potentially where they could go to. So I would say get to know yourself. Maybe you don't have the symptoms I have, but invite those periods of reflection and space into your life to work out whether potentially, like me, I was on a 7-year fight or flight response that took me to the emergency room. Maybe someone else is out on something similar and they don't know because they're feeling high on life. Hey, I was too. Having a nice cocktail on the rooftop in Ipanema Hotel. I didn't know I was in fight or flight response, but if I slowed down and I was able to structure my routine in a little bit more of a sustainable way, I'm sure I would have been able to manage my health better and also my relationships better. And my work, I'm guessing, would have been better as well.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, which is also how I found you again a few weeks ago. So you started telling your story on Instagram, on your Instagram account. You reactivated it. And then you told me that something else happened because you have your own product now and it kind of unfolded. What was that story?
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Yeah, no, that was it. That was exciting, actually. I was building in private is the words that I can use now in trying to construct this digital product on the sort of video creator starter kit at the moment. It's going to work into a community building initiative, but I was very much orientated around it, productizing myself. What skills can I actually sell to the world right now? There's people in India, in America, in Belgium that potentially want to know what I have done or what I know from my experience, and they're 6 months or 2 years behind me. I can just sell back to them. This was the premise that I'm working at, which has been validated since that. And I was doing all of this at 3 a.m. in the morning in my apartment in lockdown, which is obviously the worst way possible. And I signed up to a quasi business group on Twitter, which was the idea that you present a piece of content every day for 30 days. And because of that consistency and getting those pings and wisdom of the crowds from other people, you will then get a better idea of what's going on in your life. You will build up consistency of publishing online and whatnot. And so I posted 3 videos surrounding the idea of potentially starting a podcast on mental health because I was going through this struggle. Okay, maybe I can share something, and maybe I share 3 months ago as opposed to 5 years ago because I was struggling so heavily. And I posted 3 videos and I had the response of, wow, how do you deliver on camera like that? And what's your home studio? And there I was, my ego was ever bruised. Oh, why doesn't anyone care about my podcast? But thankfully, it took me 3 days to detach from the situation and see the market gap and go, okay, well, I've got something to share. Once again, it's that first mile. I don't have to compare myself against the market technicians that are the lighting specialists on huge European commercials. I can actually say, I know how to do a little lighting setup, for example, on Zoom or for a casting, or I've had the strangest use cases come. I have people that are musicians, people that are insurance brokers, people that are finance brokers, because that ability of video to transform yourself or transfer yourself into another room in another piece of the world, as I said previously, is unrivaled. And when I started off thinking I can help models and actors, now it's gone into all these professionals that want to launch a YouTube channel or send pictures via video. I'm like, I can help you. I am your man. So then there it went. I kept pinging the audience, and by day 30, I had my home studio course built, which is now up on the platform. And I'm building the Confidence on Camera 1 now, which is the anxiety to anxious transformation, because as I'm sure you are aware that the symptoms of both of those are almost identical in our physiological response. It is all in the mental department upstairs. So I go through the techniques such as priming, such as breath work. And then I talked about I did, body language influence and that kind of thing. And then yesterday delved into the camera relationship, building a relationship with this strange mechanical device that stores our presence and transforms that around the world. So it's been quite a dramatic change in 100 days, I think I'm at 108 days since I started that particular journey. And when I did that, I was broken human and was trying to rebuild myself. And I'm still very much on that path. But it's been really, really motivating to understand that we can't do anything alone. And there are out there people that are relatable and want to receive not just some expertise, but also feel like they're not alone on that journey as well. And I was receiving that simultaneously from other people. And that's why I'm going to take this product in the community side of things, because there's so many of us out there in the world operating on autopilot. And I think that if we can build these little communities of shared experiences, no matter what you're doing, it can be a really powerful source of self-reflection, of empowerment, and sort of rising all boats rather than operating in our little silos around the world.
Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting. So how can people get access to your platform, and how is it called?
It's called Joy with Jace. So I know it's confusing because I have a really long list of domain names I bought. it was part of my Corona experience where I was like, 99 cents, I'll take it. I think that's part of my questions I ask myself, whether it's a check-in to see whether I'm feeling anxious or not. Am I being financially responsible? And so because I was so very stuck down that anxiety pile, I think I bought 120 domain names. So yeah, add up 99 cents. That's a few lunches right there. Anyway, I got to the area of Joy with Jace. I liked the name of it. And that was going to be the podcast about trying to achieve, for example, joy, I believe, is something that's more sustainable than happiness. Happiness is more that transactional experience. And often we need a stimulus to maintain that. And I define joy as something that's more ever present in our life and it's sustainable. So that's why I went with that name, and that was going to be the podcast. And since I got all the handles for it, and then when I transferred over into video, creator starter kit and confidence on camera, I was like, well, I'll just go character branding and people will just have to ask me what it's all about. So anyway, the platform is joywithjace.com. And then all my handles now are Joy with Jace Video, which is across. I'm starting my YouTube this weekend. I've got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, ever present, welcoming that instability into my life and then paying my therapist to help me do so.
Really nice. Okay, we're going to link all these links on the show notes. And last question to understand, is it people can buy like one course, or is it like a membership? How can people join you?
Yeah, it's a membership. I mean, I've made it particularly frictionless. If someone is really desiring this, I know how the financial struggles can be in the industry as well. So I am not trying to exploit people. There's actually a 7-day free trial, which the content that I have up there at the moment, you could watch it all. So sign up, watch it all and leave. What I'm trying to encourage is that I'm going on a particular journey. It's a subscription basis. You can pay on a monthly way or an annual basis. But I'm showing you what I've done so far. I'm showing you what I'm doing right now For example, I'm launching the YouTube channel. There are so many people that want to launch a YouTube channel and they keep asking me about this. They're like, wow, you're good with video. Tell me how to set up a YouTube channel. I'm like, I don't have one, but let's set it up together. So then I'm going to do a tutorial series of like sort of building in public, a public experiment of launching a YouTube channel. And I think that that's something that's also relatable. So I'm actually going to push more into that community element where we'll have a community platform we can chat upon. And I'm going to have also this app that enables video chatting. I don't know whether you're someone that's interested in this, but maybe I can show you more offline. It's a fantastic device that you can wake up each morning and I can give a prompt. And then the community gets that video and we sort of go through like a chain mail of interacting with each other.
Nice.
So this is coming as well. So lots of exciting elements in product design.
Nice. I think we're coming to an end now. Is there something left you want to give our listeners along?
Well, if my lesson in 2020 and 2021 was authenticity, it was making sure that you don't do things alone. So then if you are going into the world, do so in a way that is a true representation of yourself, but then also take the space, and you don't need to be unwell to talk to someone. My therapist now, who's been doing almost business coaching, if he asks me how's my day been and my week, it's been going good, then we sometimes talk about strategies such as how to use social media and that kind of thing. So I encourage people to just remember that life really is human interactions. How can we do that in the best light that expresses ourselves, that nurtures those relationships, and go out there and have those genuine chats with people? And if you need, professional support is always there.
Thank you. What are you thankful for today?
Oh, this conversation. It's fantastic.
Me too.
I enjoy it. In a very fast world, I've been experimenting with this Racket software or app. I don't know whether you're familiar with it yet. They launched, I think, last month or something. And it's a little short 9 minutes recorded conversation. So maybe a speed podcast.
Yeah.
I like them. It's exciting. But you obviously don't get the same depth and being able to create those connections. So today, it's a really genuine conversation with yourself that I'm appreciative of.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your whole story. And I wish you all the best. And you are an inspiration for us all.
Thank you kindly. No, I really appreciate the platform you're building and all the wonder that you're providing in the world as well. You're empowering other people. So there's a lot of selfless activity going on.
Ich hoffe sehr, dass wir dich mit dieser Folge inspirieren konnten und du einiges für dich und deinen Weg daraus mitnehmen konntest. Wir würden uns natürlich freuen, wenn du deine Gedanken zu dieser Folge mit uns teilst und uns dein Feedback dalässt. Das kannst du sehr gerne bei Instagram unter dem Post zur heutigen Folge tun oder auch per Direct Message an Jason oder an mich. Du findest uns auf Instagram unter @joywithjacevideo oder @maike.döling und wir würden uns sehr über deine Nachricht freuen. Alle weiteren Links und auch diese findest du natürlich in den Shownotes. Außerdem würde ich mich sehr darüber freuen, wenn du mir bei iTunes eine 5-Sterne-Rezension gibst und einen kleinen Text dazu schreibst, damit wir weiter wachsen können mit dem Podcast und noch mehr Menschen damit erreichen, inspirieren und unterstützen können. Dafür wäre ich dir sehr dankbar. Und damit schicke ich dir jetzt viel Sonne, viel Energie aus Fuerteventura und ich wünsche dir einen wunderschönen Tag oder Abend und freue mich, wenn du auch bei der nächsten Folge wieder mit dabei bist. Alles Liebe, deine Maike.